right down there with Joe.
You feeling okay?
Yes, you all right?
No, I'm coming off a cold.
Do you want me to go? I have Zycam up in my room. You want me to go get some?
I just went to TSO concert.
Then you're fine.
Good.
Crowded.
Hey, he's sick, but he's going to concerts.
Oh, no, I just turned it on. Turn it on.
Yeah, there was an early one because they couldn't use the rain.
Usually I'm in town playing late. I'll talk to you. It's a nightmare out there. No.
Ms. Roby, if we could start this evening's meeting, please.
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, November 18th, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
We ask that we remember all of those in our community that are less fortunate than we are, both locally and globally. Remember those who have lost loved ones since the last time we've been in these chambers. And we also ask our God and Creator to give us the right information and the wisdom to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes for the meeting of Wednesday, November 4th, 2015, and bills for payment on November 20th and 27th, 2015. Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody here this evening, and welcome Mayor Sinnott. Please, thank you for being here, and if you want to present the budget for 2016. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of council, good evening. Tonight I present you with the 2016 budget for the City of Erie. Once again, it is a balanced budget that reflects the true cost of providing safety and services to our citizens, as well as accurate revenue projections necessary for providing these services. It does not include any tax or fee increases. The 2016 budget reflects the ongoing stability in our municipal operation that we have worked very hard to develop by finding new efficiencies and ways of controlling our costs of doing business. Over these 10 years, we've addressed the root problems and created realistic solutions. The result is a much more stable operating model that allows us to accurately anticipate attainable revenues and contemplate the true cost of providing public safety and services at the level required to properly serve this community. My administration continues to keep its promise to the citizens of Erie that we will administer city government in an efficient and effective manner for their benefit. Our department heads, bureau chiefs, supervisors, and staff have all worked diligently to find new ways to conduct operations so as to save money for our taxpayers while continually refining our methods so that services would not be compromised. Over the past 10 years, we have focused on our core competencies, changed our way of doing business, and reduced our workforce by approximately 25%. We have created an efficient and effective government that is a model across the state for communities trying to find their way out of economic insolvency. It is our philosophy of prioritizing, focusing on our core competencies, and vigorously monitoring of spending that allows us to continue to remain financially healthy while providing top quality safety and services to our citizens. We have shown that financial insolvency can be overcome if we are willing to face the issues head on, make hard decisions, and formulate real solutions to restore stability and promote future prosperity. We work diligently to refine every aspect of our operation to maximize our efficiency, doing much more with much less in all departments to control our cost centers. We have paid down our aggregate debt by nearly $45 million and upgraded our bond rating 4 times, going from junk bond status in 2005 to our most recent rating of A stable investment grade. Because of this better rating, we were able to refinance our remaining debt at lower interest rates, keeping the annual payments as low as possible to minimize the impact on our annual budgets. This allowed us to reallocate monies previously going to debt service to fund other projects like our long-term, very aggressive paving plan to do the necessary large-scale road repairs over a 5-year period without tax increases to cover these costs. In the area of risk management, our enhanced safety programs and claims management have led to an extraordinary savings in both workers' comp claims and property liability losses. We have managed to cut our workers' comp claims by nearly 70% since 2006, and our property and liability costs have been cut in half. Over the past 10 years, we have saved our taxpayers millions of dollars by effectively lowering our risk and diligently managing claims to conclusion. These are the types of plans we continue to pursue to ensure a stable financial future for this community for years to come. We do, however, still face the ongoing challenge of the declining revenue base in supporting an operation which continues to increase in cost each year. Although we have effectively managed the costs that we can control, there are a host of expenses that are outside the control of the administration and council and are determined by the governor and legislators in Harrisburg. Myself and mayors across the Commonwealth continue to work in Harrisburg to get necessary changes to state law in order to relieve these burdens on our communities. The work we have done in Erie to isolate and engage real challenges facing our city has become the driving force behind the Communities in Crisis Task Force formed by the Pennsylvania League of Cities. We have inspired other cities to band with us in order to formulate an agenda of change and challenge Harrisburg to address the root of the common problems so that long-term success for our cities can be achieved. This is something we as a community can be proud of. The issues being addressed by the task force include skyrocketing pension costs, Act 111 uniform service contract costs, and post-employment benefits. These items have a significant impact on our long-term financial stability. For example, in 2016, our budgeted pension contribution, which is mandated by state law, will be approximately $11.9 million. This is up from $3.65 million in 2006, a nearly 300% increase over this 10-year period. This will continue to climb each and every year until there is meaningful reform in Harrisburg that includes municipal pensions. Our employee costs in the police and fire departments have gone from $25.5 million in 2006 to $43 million in 2016, a 70% increase. These are not discretionary costs, but are the direct results of mandatory arbitration awards. This too will continue until there are meaningful changes to the state statutes governing Act 111 collective bargaining. Our post-employment benefits, which were cited as a weakness by Standard & Poor's in our most recent bond upgrade, are currently $1.6 million per year. These costs include health benefits for retired uniformed service members and are the direct result of mandatory Act 111 arbitration awards. In contrast, our entire general fund budget has increased from $55 million in 2006 to $72.1 million in 2016. This is approximately a 30% increase over the last 10 years, contrasted by the 70 to 300% increases in our major cost drivers during the same time frame. This shows that through effective stewardship of the operation, we have been able to counteract some of the effects of these much larger increases in the non-discretionary items. However, these costs continue to grow at a very disproportionate rate and will do so until the laws allowing this are changed. To date, we have not garnered enough support among the state legislators to accomplish meaningful changes. Until we do, the burden continues to fall on our municipal taxpayers across the state. We are resolved to continue to work diligently to gain support for these critical initiatives as they are paramount to the future success of communities all across the Commonwealth. In the meantime, we will continue in our efforts locally to make Erie a model of success for cities across Pennsylvania who have faced financial hardship. The budget I present today will continue this progress. It reflects true revenue projections as well as real cost estimates. It honestly contemplates the needs for 2016 and the best way to apply our resources to meet those needs. As I promised with the previous budgets, our goal is to administer an efficient, effective, and progressive operation. As the results of each of the 10 years have shown, we did just that. This budget is no different. Once again, it does not include a property tax or fee increases and does not include any new personnel or programs. It simply supports the current services and capital needs in each of the areas. Finally, I would like to thank every department head, bureau chief, and employee of the City of Erie who continue to do everything in their power to make the city operations affordable to the taxpayers. They are to be commended for their dedicated efforts. I would like to thank you, our City Council, for continuing to work with us in a positive and proactive manner. We have all been a part of the successes we have realized over the past 10 years. I would like to commend you for your work in supporting the hard decisions which brought us through the difficult times and for becoming more aware of the operation of the city and the consequences of the decisions made within this chamber. I would also like to thank the City Controller and City Treasurer who have continued to work with us to help easily implement the operation in each of their areas. Together, we have created an economically stable city government and shown our community that we can work together to create a government that truly operates with their best interest as a first priority. The decisions and determinations towards the enactments of a final budget are yours. We ask that you adopt this budget because we believe it truly reflects our community's needs. My staff will be available to help you to understand the information in the budget and throughout the process and the thought process that went into each of the decisions each of the decisions comprising the individual budget recommendations. And I think I better stop there based on that last part. Thank you.
It's a tough last sentence there.
That got me. I got all the way to the end.
Thank you, Mayor Sinnott. Having just been handed the budget, I don't know if any council members has any questions at this time. Seeing none. Thank you, Mayor. We'll schedule meetings with the staff and the directors and be able to ask questions and kind of review it in detail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, moving on with the agenda, Councilman Witherspoon has a presentation he'd like to make.
Okay, Rose. Yeah. Mr. Homer Smith.
Hi, Homer. Come on up.
Hello there.
November 18, 2015, by Mr. Melvin Witherspoon, second by Council Members Haran, Kunso, Jones, Kwiatkowski, Mursky, and Brennan. Resolved by the City Council of the City of Erie that whereas the City Council of Erie wishes to pay special tribute to Homer Lee Smith as he is honored for his community service, passion for education, and mentoring young people at the New Jerusalem Lutheran Church at the 15th Annual Crypt to College Scholarship Ball. And whereas Homer Lee Smith, who was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, came to Erie as a college graduate, hired by Dan and Dale New Horizons as counselor and night child care worker in their intensive treatment unit, and retired after 35 years of exemplary service. And whereas Homer also worked for the City of Erie for 25 years in various capacities and offices, serving in human relations, EEO labor, and ABA compliance, and also at Gannon University as Assistant Director of Alumni Services. Mr. Smith currently works for Erie Rise Leadership Academy and also volunteers as a program sponsorship coordinator and radio announcer for WERG's Super Soul Saturday program. Homer is a member of St. James AME Church, and he also serves on several boards and organizations. So, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that this commendation honors Homer Lee Smith and extend to him our heartfelt thanks and appreciation in recognition of his significant contribution and dedication to the Erie community.
Turn around here, my brother. I want to thank Homer for all he has done in the city of Erie for our youth. Many of the things that you heard moments ago, he exceeds that probably 20 times.
He's a quiet giant in our community. He seeks no notification, he seeks no accolades, but I think it's time for us to wake up the sleeping giant and let him know that we care about what he do. The only problems I have with Mr. Homer Smith is that when I met him, he addressed me as Mr. Witherspoon, and that was fine. He was a young man. Now he has caught up with me in age, and he still say Mr. Witherspoon. So at one point, hopefully he'll be able to say, hey, Mel, hey, Spoon, hey, you. But he has always respect me and everyone else. And Homer, we thank you very, very much. And we have a special presentation for you. Thank you, sir. Hold this, sir. Do something. Thank you, sir. All right. Give me my mic back. Give your mic back, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. On behalf of members of City Council, we just want to give you something special to hang on your wall in your study. Thank you very much for everything you have done for us in the city.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Just would like to say thank you to Mr. Witherspoon, the mayor, the Honorable City Council. It was a pleasure to work here at the city for the 25 years I was here. And God had another purpose for me. The day that I was laid off from the city, I got hired by Gannett University, and my son was able to attend free of charge. So that's a blessing, even when something like that happens drastically and you change professions. God had another plan. So I'd like to just thank my family for their support of me, for allowing me to do the things that we do to help make Erie a better location. Again, thank you so much, and again, God bless each of you.
Mr. President, I just want to make a quick comment before Mr. Smith comes around and shakes our hands. I just wanted to thank him for all as he's done, all he continues to do, and specifically as a young black man in this community, you've been a great example and role model. But not just to young black men and young black girls, but to all young people in our community. You've been a great example. And I'll say this as you shake the best hand, maybe one of the best hands in the room. A lot of the things that you do in the community as far as speaking and emceeing program, like no one does it better. And you're someone that I've modeled some of my speaking and those types of things in church environments and in other spaces after you, and I've never told you that, but I definitely want to be as smooth as you when I grow up. And I appreciate for what you're doing and what you've always done, and the unsung hero of the things that you do. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're going to move on to the next portion of our meeting this evening. Go to the request for repository sales. And I'm told we do have someone here to speak on behalf of a property. If you can give your name and address, introduce yourself, and then you can talk about the request.
Certainly, thank you. My name is Ronald Cook. My address is 193 Concord Drive in Northeast. I am here to express my interest in purchasing a property from the county repository list. That property is located at 428 and 430 East 8th Street. I own the property that's at 424 and 426 East 8th Street, directly to the west of this vacant lot. We have already been cleaning the trash. It's quite a dump, but we've cleaned it up, and we have maintained the mowing and so forth of that lot this summer. And we're interested in purchasing that to add it to our property, basically.
Anything else regarding the property? What will the use be?
It will remain vacant. It'll just be attached to the property that we have already there next door.
Okay. Any questions from council members regarding this property? Ms. Kunza? No questions? Is there anything? Oh, I guess we do have a question.
Make me ask a question, right? It's my job to ask the questions. That's what they've all decided. So you own the property next door, and you're using that as a rental?
Yes.
Okay. And then this one is just a vacant lot,
That's correct.
and people are dumping there, or what is
People have been dumping trash there for as long as I've owned the property next door, which is about 4 years.
Oh.
We've been trying to clean it up, and now it's clean now. We've been mowing it all summer and taking care of it. So.
Okay. And that property has been a vacant lot ever since you've owned the neighboring parcel? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate you taking care of that before ownership, and really look forward to you taking care of it once this is transferred to you.
Very
Thank
well.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
I'm sorry, I had a quick question. I may have misheard you, sir. Did you say 428 and 430? Is it classified as two lots, or did I just mishear? Are those a
It's
technical?
one lot with
Right.
two addresses. Apparently, there was probably a
building on each
flat
one.
or a duplex there at one time or the other.
an
when it
apartment
was
building.
428 and 430.
Okay.
Mine next door is 424 and 426.
Got you.
But it's one lot.
Okay, all right. And so you don't really have any plans right now to do any rebuilding or building anything else there? Just gonna?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I thought I heard two addresses, and I didn't want to make sure I didn't miss something. Thank you again.
Anything else?
If there's no more questions, we won't be voting on this tonight. We'll be voting on it at a future meeting, so you'll be hearing from someone from the city.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Okay, we will now go on to citizens to be heard, and we have two citizens who have signed up to speak today. Randy Barnes would be first on the list to speak this evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Randy Barnes, 109 Walton Point. I'm here tonight to talk about waste in government. I heard the mayor say that his departments have been doing much more with much less for several years. But that's just the contrast to City Council's clerk's office, where as a reminder that a year and a half ago, the existing clerk who had been here for 47 years retired. Council felt that they could not go on, they could not exist without this man, Mr. James Clem. Reported in the paper that he did earn the city's largest pension ever. But City Council, there was at least 4 people, City Council felt that they were not qualified to pick a successor. So they picked someone that was already in the office, and those 4 people felt that they didn't get a qualified candidate. They felt that this person they picked, there was no one else out there that was even qualified, so they took this person, but they decided to retain Mr. James Clem for $1,000 a month. Because they didn't feel, between the 7 of them and the 3 people in the clerk's office, they could put together an agenda twice a month. So for $1,000 a month, this Mr. Clem was going to come back and he was going to advise council. He was going to advise and train the clerk. Train the new clerk, the same person had been in the office for several years with him. But then council, these 4 people, and those 4 people that voted for that were Councilman Witherspoon, Winarski, Jones, and Rand Kunko. Those 4 people thought, well, maybe we have to come up with something else. So why don't we say he's going to preserve and archive the records? Sounds like a pretty important thing to do, pretty complicated thing to do. We went on for almost a year thinking that was quite a thing to preserve these records until we found out that the records were already on microfilm. All we had to do was call up Perillo Enterprises on Parade Street and say, come and get the microfilm, because they'd already done that. They'd already done that for about 30 years worth of records. I don't know if council knew that. Apparently they didn't. Apparently council was so out of touch, they didn't realize that the records had already been started to be preserved, and all they had to do was call Perillo Enterprises. Did Mr. Witherspoon know that? Did Mr. Jones know that? Did Mr. Winarski know that? Mr. Rand Kunko know that? I don't think they did. This clerk, because his $67,000 pension wasn't enough after working 47 years, buffaloed 4 city council people saying, you need me here. You need me to preserve these records because no one else knows how to call Perillo Enterprises and tell them come and get the microfilm. So for $1,000 a month for the next 24 months, I'll do that for you. In fact, you're paying the bill tonight for Perillo Enterprises, $2,some $100 for preserving this microfilm, transferring it onto electronic media so it would be preserved. So as much as you wanted to vote, get this out of the way, and just keep everybody happy, keep your friend happy, because it's about friends and family, keeping your friends and family happy with what you can do is give them some contracts, some extra money. So you 4 council people thought, no big deal, $1,000 a month, vote it, sweep it under the carpet, move on. But I decided this wasn't a good example of what's wrong with the politics and the city council in this city, at least the 4 people that voted for that. And to remind you who those 4 people again were, they were Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Jones, Mr. Rancuco. Those are the 4 people that voted to give this man $1,000 a month to call Perillo Enterprise and say, come and get the microfilm. And also helped to put an agenda together twice a month, because when council knew about it for a year and a half, this man wanted to retire. Apparently, they didn't actively search for a qualified candidate, because when they end up appointing somebody, they said, you know what, that person's not qualified. We have to have someone here to hold our hands. Us 4 council people need someone to hold our hands. It reminds me of the early years daycare over here when I see them taking the kids for a walk. They're all holding a rope together. So we need someone to hold our hands for 2 years. Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Jones, Mr. Rancuco said, for $1,000 a month, that's a cheap babysitter. And that's what we need, because we're babies. We need someone to sit with us. We need Mr. Clem back here to sit with us, because we need somebody to hold our hand. Because we're not growing up in well, I shouldn't say that. It's all about giving your friends and family money, folks. You know it out there as well as I do. Thank you.
Next citizen who'd signed up is Amy Comparatori. Amy?
Lady and gentlemen of council, may it please the council, yesterday, November 17, 2015, I had a 2-hour interview with Mike Tan and Mark Noche of EMTA, aka the E. They were extremely nice, and the meeting was quite enlightening for both sides. You will find copies of the bylaws for the EMTA Authority and copies of the Municipality Authorities Act of 1945, which I'll provide you next week, as I had to go through the entire act today. So next time we meet, I will have that plus a cheat sheet for you. Also find attached a report, and again, this will be next week as well, because my time was taken with that, with details of questions and answers. Please take the time to read these, because the good of our city's citizens relies on your having knowledge of these in order to take action on the battle between the city and the county. These were freely given to me by Mike Tan. They were submitted into your mailboxes, and I submit these into evidence. And may everything I say be part of the public record. An old professor of mine used to say that every problem communities face has 3 prongs: political, socio, and economic. The problem facing our buses and the EMTA Authority is no different. As such, each of these 3 prongs needs to be addressed in order to have a proper functioning authority. More importantly, the authority, the board, needs to understand each of these prongs in relation to mass transit and buses. I will be submitting another paper next time we meet about each of these prongs, what we could do better and what we are doing that is inappropriate. I look forward to you reading it and providing feedback to serve our community with. There is too much to cover in one 5-minute session. As a quick summary for today, it amounts to several things, and please note that these figures were given to me by the Executive Director, Mike Tan, himself. Financial accountability, the city is not up to their fair share. Fares only account for 20% of revenue. The rest is subsidy. It's 80% subsidized. $9 million of that comes from PennDOT, the state. $3 million of that comes from the federal government, which means that what was quoted in the Erie Times News about $12 million coming from the county is not truly so. It's just a flow down through them to us. So how much actually does come from the county? $330,000 comes from them, and $260,000 comes from the city. Combined with city and county money, that's $590,000 combined. That's $12,590,000 in revenue. In 1966, it used to be 60% revenue from the city and 40% revenue from the county. Almost 50 years later, those figures have flipped. If I was paying the lion's share, I might think I would have power to overstep too. However, I found that in the Act of 1945 and has been updated by Act 110 of 2001, that is not necessarily so. That is what I will be presenting next time we meet. Here are the evils of money, power, and authority as they present themselves against the common good for our citizens. If the city of Erie could allocate $70,000 more to EMTA, then the responsibility would be 50-50, and no one could think that they were any better than the other. Ideally, if we were to return to the days of 60% accountability from the city, and thereby have the majority hand, the city would have to contribute a total of $350,000-$400,000 to EMTA. That's $94,000 more instead of $70,000 more, a difference of only $24,000, which is very reasonable with budgets like this. To give the city back her power over her own transit authority, this extra $24,000 seems like a small price to pay, especially considering the allocations of funds that the council has approved of lately. I am convinced that if the financial responsibility is met by the city, the controversy with the county will disappear. I advise the council and the mayor and his office to reallot money towards transit and to put the city's money where the city's residents need it most. And right now, that is in public mass transit. If we are truly proud that 72 to 75% of ridership is within the city of Erie, another figure given to me by Mike Tan, our financial allocations ought to match our numbers. If they fail to do so, we could lose Erie's only bus transportation, which would be devastating for her city residents. And this charter will expire in September of 2016. With that, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will now hear any other citizen be heard.
Richard Wagner, 42nd State. The Kohler Project, parking lot. Market on Parade, Section 8 housing. Mercantile Building, 50% empty. 140 houses on 14th and Peach, we have 7. Visiting Nurses Association moved to Mill Creek. Hands moved to 7th and State. Junior's Facade reinstalling windows cost $500,000. Gaff Properties got a parking ramp. McBride Viaduct ignored. Bradley's Market, Sanders Market, Erie County Farms, Cherry Lou Fruit, all gone. Anna's Shelter, mistreated. East 12th and Bayfront, what a welcome to visitors. Erie Business Center's gone. Erie Catholic Diocese schools and churches soon to be gone. Waterworks pays twice the value to Mill Creek's water authority. Arnone sold for back taxes. The EMTA project, $60 million for what? Do any of you think that anything I have mentioned has anything to do with your decisions and the steadily decline down to 99,542 people in Erie? I think it does. I stand before you tonight as a proud worker in the city. For you see, almost 50 years ago to the day, I was an 18-year-old boy looking for a job. Kaiser Aluminum gave me a chance. And because of that, I had a successful career and, frankly, a wonderful life. Unfortunately, the times we are in won't provide that to what is left of the residents of the city of Erie. For you see, 50 years ago, I could have gone to Bucyrus Erie, International Paper, Gaff, Amsco, the Zurn Foundry, American Meter, GE, Lord Corporation, and Erie's Magnetics. I would have been rewarded with a family-sustaining wage in a vibrant manufacturing setting. Unfortunately, all the companies I mentioned no longer do business in our city. They are not out of business. They have just opted to leave the city of Erie behind and move to greener pastures. Do you ever ask yourselves what you could have done differently to keep Erie a manufacturing mecca? As I thought about this, and go back 50 years, I look at the leadership, and frankly, in 2 short years, we will be picking a new mayor. And more than likely, who is ever lucky enough to get elected, will serve for 12 years. That seems to be a pattern. But as legislators, who might want to become an administrator, the voters have to take a look at what's happened in 50 years. We had 36 years where someone from the teaching profession led our city. And for the 16 years following that, we elected lawyers to run the city. For 52 years, we've had teachers and attorneys running the city. And by the way, they were all Democrats. How's that work for us? The answer is obvious, it hasn't. For our city to survive, we have to have a business person, Democrat or Republican, who can bring our city back. We have tried 2 professions. It's time for a business professional. The mayor presented the budget this evening, and it doesn't contain a tax increase. The reason why it doesn't contain a tax increase is that earlier this year he refloated bonds and borrowed $12 million for 3 years of paving. The budget, in reality, is $3 million short if you hadn't borrowed. I have a suggestion for you. And if you don't ask difficult questions, the budget process that you embrace is even more than a dog and pony show. I have some questions that you should ask of different departments. Do you really need Jim Clem? Should we give $25,000 to the regional chamber? Should we give $25,000 to an inner-city basketball league? Does the treasurer's office serve a role in our city anymore? Their main function seems to be sending out tax bills. Someone else could do that. And lastly, the Department of Economic Development is redundant. It is duplicated in over 20 different iterations throughout the city and the county. And the head of that department failed to avail herself to the meeting with GE Union, Senator Casey, the mayor, and the county executive. If that department doesn't understand that GE is vital to our success, it doesn't need to be here anymore. It seems its only function or accomplishment is to pass through HUD money and lead paint remediation money. If you as a group aren't ready to attack any of the questions I've mentioned, then I have a suggestion for you. Let's waive the rules tonight and add the mayor's budget to the agenda. You will save time and money and won't have to drag the heads of departments in Erie through your dog and pony show. And thank you very much for your attention. And happy holiday, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. Other citizens to be heard?
Good evening, Council. Good evening. Good evening, visitors. You know, I have a few issues. Of course, they don't mean nothing to y'all. When this property that go on the tax roll, you sell it, that $250 you sell it for, do you ask those individuals what they intend on doing to that property? Do you?
I always do.
Well, in the future, I want you to ask them what they're going to do with it. What are their intentions? My property's on 19th and Reed, in that area out through there. Poe, the garbage man, he's buying up a lot of property out through there, and he's putting those blocks down, and he's parking those garbage containers up in there. Now, our neighborhood look bad enough. We don't need those garbage containers. We don't need those blocks. I want you to go down through there and look it over. Don't it have to be changed? Let me see. I don't know who's over that. But I know at one time I wanted to. I had bought a garage, Ed Rover's old place, and I caught hell Every time I turn around, the code folks was on my back. But Poe, he just tore down a house. It was a nice house, too, on 19th Street. And he could park those containers anywhere he wanted them. Well, we don't like it, and we want you to do something about it. You're supposed to be the mothers and fathers up there running things. Run things. You wouldn't want that in your neighborhood. I know you wouldn't. Garbage container. He had that Liberty, where the old junkyard is over there. He just, I don't know. But we're not going for this, and I want you to know we're not going to go for it. So you all better do something about it, because it's going to be a problem. Just, I don't know, he got the curb down there, then he got something in the next block, then the old Liberty garage, he tore some houses down there, and he got junk in there. He can do anything he wanna. I don't like it. I don't want to see that crap in the neighborhood. The neighborhood look bad enough as it is. I want y'all to look into this. Now, will you look into it? Will you look into it?
Mr. McDonald, it's 19th Street. You're at Reed, but what is this block that this is at? 19th and what?
Between Ash and Reed and Wayne, but down through there, I'm not saying anything about down through there. He don't have it looking too bad down through there. But you look between Ash and Reed, that don't look too good. He done put a fence up next to that Falcon Club down there, and he got those containers in there. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And I want you to do something about it. I was talking to him. I asked him, I said, why are you putting them things all over? He said, well, I own the property. Just because he own, hey, I own some property and I'm catching hell because I got a couple trucks parked on it. And it make the neighborhood look better. You want to know the truth? But I don't know. Things just don't, that picture just don't look too good to me, and that water's mighty muddy. That he can do whatever he want to do. Just come in our neighborhood. Before you sell him that property, you should tell him. He said that, he didn't say it. Something about it's been transferred or something. I think that you should ask the peoples in the neighborhood before you let somebody bring all that crap in there. But like I said, you wouldn't want it in your neighborhood, and I don't like it.
Are there any other citizens to be heard? Are there any other citizens to be heard? One last time, any other citizens to be heard? Seeing none, Ms. Roby, if we continue with the rest of the meeting.
Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 15936, an ordinance fixing the tax rate for all city purposes for the fiscal year 2016, beginning on January 1st, 2016, and ending on December 31st, 2016. Sponsored by Mr. Brennan and seconded by Mr. Mursky, that council file ordinance number 15936, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Rancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15936 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file 15937, an ordinance of the City of Erie, County of Erie, and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania adopting general fund and certain other budgets for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2016 and ending December 31st, 2016. By Mr. Brennan and seconded by Mr. Mursky, that council file ordinance number 15937, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Sarancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15937 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 15938, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $12,500 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof, donation from the Star Athletic Club. Sponsored by Mr. Kwiatkowski and seconded by Mrs. Sarancunso, that council file ordinance number 15938, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Sarancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15938 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. New business.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like to move the balance of the agenda.
Are there any seconds?
I'll second it.
Mr. Kwiatkowski seconds.
Any separations?
Any separation? Seeing none, we're going to vote on the moving the balance.
Moving the balance of the agenda, Mrs. Sarancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. That'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Mursky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things to report. The budget was presented today, and I'm very pleased that there's no tax increase in the budget. Running a city of this size is very challenging, especially given the amount of tax-exempt properties that we have in the city. And I'm very pleased with the mayor's proposal and the cost-saving measures that we've implemented as a city over the past decade. They've really, the testament is in the bond rating, and when the banks tell us that we're a good credit, that tells us that we're doing something right. So I look forward to meeting with the department heads. There's always room to cut, and there's always ways to try to generate revenue, and we've talked about that at some of our study sessions and at our budget meetings and our finance meetings. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is from the fire department, we did get a fire contract, and it was negotiated. And we want to thank our firefighters. This is the first time in a long time it hasn't gone to binding arbitration, so that tells me that there was a spirit of cooperation there and a spirit of goodwill. And our firefighters are first class. I'm really pleased with the work they do, and we're very fortunate in this city to have paid fire department. The service is beyond reproach, and we thank them for their service and thank the city for negotiating a good contract. We look forward to hearing the details of that. And that's all I have to report today.
Thank you, Mr. Mursky. Ms. Kunzel?
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. The couple things to report. The Water Reserve Investment Committee met last week with the consultant. Mr. Clem does serve as a member of the committee. That's one of his jobs that he does for us. So anyway, so the Water Reserve Investment Committee has rewritten the policy statement so that those funds will be continued to grow for capital investment needs of the city, and that policy will be presented to council at next meeting for a vote and for to be ratified by the council. So that was last rewritten in 2008. So it was timely for us to reevaluate whether our policy was reflecting what our goals were for the fund in order to bring 4% of the total value of the fund into the city for capital needs each year. So I look forward to that being ready for next meeting. Also, I just wanted to clarify a couple things. The repository properties that come before council, that the properties are sold for $250, those properties have already been on a tax sale, which have not been purchased. They've also been on a share sale and have not been purchased. The process is very lengthy, and the reason they come to us on the repository is that we are forgiving the back taxes and liens that are attached to those properties so that the properties can be put back into useful use. They will then forgive anything in arrears and begin taxing them anew. The reason why those properties, we ask the questions, is because in exchange for us removing those back taxes, we expect you to remove the blight. You may have seen, if you watched council, when we've had citizens who've come before us who we've asked what their disposition with the property, and they have not removed the blight or do not intend to remove the blight or just intend to live in it, we refuse to sell the property to them if they're not going to remove that blight. So, so that's that process. The gentleman that spoke today about some properties being sold and council not stopping the process, we don't have involvement on regular transaction of property sales within our city or the tax sale process or the sheriff sale process. They don't come to us until all those things have not happened, that no one has bought them on those other mechanisms. So we don't have a say in every property disposition. The issues that were raised regarding the use of property for garbage containers or whatnot, that may be a zoning matter. There may be an issue of zoning. Either the person is either complying with the zoning or they're not. I don't know that until we investigate that or have our zoning officer look into that. So that can be looked into. It is possible that the property owner is within his rights if the property that he has purchased is zoned for the uses he's using them for. But I just wanted to clarify that for the record so people will understand the process. And I always ask what you're going to do with the property. And I have assurances that my council colleagues will continue to do that once I'm no longer up here. The other question that was still hanging out there was, we had a citizen who was interested in starting the Neighborhood Watch on State Street and for the State Street residents, and she still had the inquiry as to whether or not she'd be able to use this building for her monthly meetings. Then the Neighborhood Resource Organization, I guess, is willing to assist her. Yeah, do you have an answer?
I do. I did speak with the Department of Public Works, and they do recommend that Neighborhood Watch organizations go outside of a governmental building for their meetings. Perhaps we can work to find something with one of the with the banks or another facility that's open on a more regular basis that will be able to handle the influx of meetings that would be scheduled. Perhaps National City's community room or the Boston store might have a space. Renaissance Center may have some meeting space that is available also. So I'm happy to lend some information, some contact information to find a suitable meeting space, if that's helpful.
I think it would be helpful for you to provide that support, but I think the whole premise is ridiculous. And if a public group of citizen volunteers who want to improve the State Street corridor can't meet here, it's ridiculous. And we are being unwelcoming to a group of volunteers.
I will be happy to take it back to the administration and ask again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Kutso. Mr. Jones.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Winarski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening once again, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank the administration for presenting a balanced budget to council this year. Although our budget sessions may be a little easier this year in particular because we don't have to deal with any fee or tax increases, it doesn't mean our job isn't done when we go to these budget sessions, because when we go to these, we still got to look at what happens in 2016, 2017, 2018, and how we can possibly get the same results next year with no fee or tax increase. So at this point, it isn't a dog and pony show. Let's get that straight for one. But it is a job that needs to be done, and it needs to be done every year. I honestly believe my colleagues up here, as well as the administration, is doing it for the best of this city as well as the citizens in it. So please bear with us with that, but it's good to hear we do have a balanced budget this year. Did talk to Brenda Sandberg, the Executive Director of the Port Authority. Next meeting, she's going to be bringing an ordinance to us regarding some zoning down at the Port Authority with the Liberty Park. They've been doing some studies from that amphitheater that was knocked down in the storm. They've decided, or they feel the best interest would be put a permanent structure down there, but going with a permanent structure is going to take some things passed by council, by zoning, and there'll be more details before our next meeting, but just so we know, that's going to be on the table next month. It's my pleasure. I got to present Dennis Brandell Jr. a certificate of appreciation from the City of Erie. Over on Broad Street there, that for the last 15 years they've had this indoor baseball facility that can be used actually year-round, but mainly during the winter months when everything's covered with snow. And they just went through a $75,000 upgrades and improvement, from lighting to AstroTurf and, of course, painting. But Brandell Jr. from Brandell Painting, I just want to acknowledge them. They've been doing this, like I said, for 15 years. It's a facility they use for grade school kids to college kids, for baseball, for softball, free of charge. So, I mean, we appreciate what they've done in the past. We look forward to the future. Very nice to see Dave Shermani. I know Bobby mentioned something, but almost 30 years or no arbitration, and I give credit to the union as well as the administration. Congrats on both sides. And other than that, I just want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Winarski. Mr. Kotowski.
I hope I make it through my report. I got a little cold today. I'd also like to piggyback onto you, Jimmy, about your comments about Denny Brandell. The gentleman, both senior and junior, when it comes to baseball and sports, I'm sorry to say that the school district didn't take up a lot of his offers to help, renovate some of our facilities. But it was Mr. Brandell that rushed to the aid of the Korean War Memorial when we were damaged. And it's those little things that go unnoticed. If you ever went into his garage, like years ago I went in there and I said, I was amazed. The guy is a walking, talking baseball man. And he had a plan to put 4 to 5 permanent fields in Erie. But it didn't work out. But he wanted to make this a place where our young men and our young women could actually participate, even have an indoor facility where they could compete with the other kids around the country. So thanks to Mr. Brandell also. I attended the aggregate board meeting of the pension plan, the O&E pension plan, and the police. And as the mayor said, although they are a challenge, they are making good progress. I want to assure the public of that. We continue to move forward. We inherited a plan that was 35% funded many years ago, long back when I was in high school. So to where we are now has been a slow, steady march. It hasn't been without trial and tribulation, but I want to assure the public that we do the best we can, and we have to work with the administration also, and pensions will always be a challenge, but we'll be there to push them forward in a positive manner. And finally, we did have a meeting with Ray Massing of the Parking Authority about a year and a half ago when I was liaison, my first year. Their board expressed some desire to upgrade their parking meters. And it's the same argument that a lot of us on council get every day about why are we in the dark ages? Why do we have to use money? Why can't we use credit cards, telephones? If you go out of town, everybody has it almost, even cities our size. So as a result of that meeting, we discussed how to increase revenues for both the city and the authority to help with these projects. but also how to update the parking system and make it more modern, to bring it up to date where you can download apps, you can use credit cards, you can pay by phone, do many different things. Also to make it easier for the consumer. Right now, I can't say it is easier. No one likes getting a ticket, and I think, by improving how you pay for it, I think it will actually cut into the fees a little bit, which is good, because that'll increase the revenue then. And they also want to introduce new technology to help us and to help them collect delinquent ticket offenders a little quicker. We can all use that help, and as I said before, this council is very proactive in addressing those issues which we think need addressed. Thank you, and have a good Thanksgiving, and also say a little prayer for the people in Paris and to our men and women who are overseas securing our freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kwiatkowski. Ms. Beck, a report from the administration this evening.
Just very quickly, I'd like to invite everyone to the dedication of the multi-purpose pavilion out in Perry Square. You may have noticed that the fencing has come down and the park is open for use. Mayor Senate tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We'll have some special guests under the pavilion and officially dedicating that and opening the West Side Park. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to go over a couple things here regarding the budget. Again, we'll schedule our budget sessions with each city department. We'll make our reviews, ask whatever questions we need to ask, recommend any changes, and of course approve it before December 31st. But as was already mentioned, I think one of our biggest challenges is to try to be creative and find new ways to bring in new income. I know the mayor mentioned some of those efforts earlier in the meeting today. So, we need to really do anything we can so we don't add to the current burden on our residents. So, definitely that's something that we're going to be working hard at the next couple weeks and days. I also want to report I did attend I was honored to join the Veterans Day ceremony at it was at the Jefferson Elementary School this year. It was sponsored by the Erie Veterans Affairs Medical Center. The event was held in remembrance of the service of our veterans and those who are currently serving. But definitely it was a great, wonderful event and very inspiring to hear the choir, the keynote speaker that evening, and also the entire ceremony was very nice and very appropriate. Also, as mentioned, we talked about, Mr. Kwiatkowski mentioned about the study session. We had met with the Erie Parking Authority and also PennDOT regarding the McBride Viaduct, and also representatives of a group who wanted to kind of reuse some of the dollars that are recommended for demolition for the bridge. We heard a presentation from that group. We got updates where the current engineering is for the bridge and also where the engineering is for the Buffalo Road interchange. Regarding the parking meter modernization, what was mentioned is that the target area is trying to target the high-use areas in the city. There's going to be a rollout price starting in May of this year, so that payments could be made with credit card, phone apps, or even quarters still, I believe. But I think the main goal is to try to make it easier for people to park downtown and give them choices, and hopefully bring in more revenue for the city, more revenue for the parking authority to afford maintaining a lot of the infrastructure. It's really very expensive to take care of some of the parking structures and a lot of the other things that they need to take care of. And I guess lastly, just wanted to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving, everybody enjoy their families, and have a great week. Thank you.
City Council adjourn at 8:39 p.m. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Arankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.